Hey y'all, it's Stacy. You won't believe what my sister did after I paid for her $10,000 dinner. She banned me, but it doesn't stop there. When the staff dropped the bomb that my account cleared the bill, I knew I'd been played. I've been the one holding this family together, sacrificing everything, and this is how they repay me. They've been taking advantage of me for too long, but I'm done. This time, it's my turn to speak up. But what happens when I finally stop letting them walk all over me? You're not gonna want to miss this. The night was warm, that sweet spot between summer and fall, when the sun was setting a bit earlier, casting a golden glow over the upscale restaurant in the heart of Atlanta. I stood outside, looking up at the grand building. The place reeked of money, the kind of place where they don't just serve food, they serve status. The valet greeted me with a polite nod as I walked up, my heels clicking on the polished stone beneath my feet. I was here, at my sister's $10,000 dinner. The one that, in her words, was meant to mend the family. She'd invited me, after weeks of silence. I knew the moment I received the invitation, things were going to be different this time. Maybe this time, we'd put our differences behind us. But that wasn't what I was feeling. The truth was, I was nervous, tense, unsure of what to expect. Walking through the door felt like stepping into a different world. Everyone was dressed in their finest, moving gracefully through the open dining space. The waiters glided by, their faces so polished and perfect, it almost hurt to look at them. I scanned the room, catching sight of my sister at the far end of the table. She looked impeccable, as always, her hair perfectly styled, her smile shining like she had it all together. I could feel my pulse quicken just looking at her. I thought, maybe tonight, we'd finally find a way to talk. To be family again. Maybe the wounds from the past would heal. Maybe she'd stop treating me like I was invisible. But as I stepped further into the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong. The whole thing felt like a performance, like everyone was playing their parts. My sister had always been like that, leading with a smile while making sure I stayed in the background. I took my seat at a quiet corner of the room, away from the rest of the family, where the shadows lingered just long enough to make me feel small. It wasn't long before I noticed the subtle distance growing. The polite, distant glances from family members, the whispers that stopped the moment I entered a room, the awkward silences that seemed to stretch for miles. The waiter came by to take my drink order. I smiled weakly, pretending everything was okay. I wasn't going to let this night slip by without at least pretending everything was fine. Then it happened. My sister stood up from the main table, and with that usual, practiced smile she asked me to come outside for a moment. Her voice was smooth but carried that underlying coldness that had always been there. "There's no seat for you at the main table," she said, her words wrapped in that careful politeness. "This is a special night for the family, Stacy." I froze. No seat? I thought this dinner was meant to bring us together, not tear us apart. I could feel the sting in her words, but I didn't argue. I didn't want to make a scene. So, I nodded, following her out of the room. I found a quiet chair near the back, told myself I'd just sit here and let the evening go on. But the taste of humiliation was sharp on my tongue. As I sat, trying to find some comfort in the background, a staff member approached me. He smiled gently and said, "Just so you know, your account cleared the bill for tonight." My stomach dropped. What did he just say? It hit me like a slap in the face. My sister had invited me to her $10,000 dinner, knowing full well that I was the one who'd paid for it. She had left me out of the celebration, yet I had paid for the entire thing. The anger bubbled up inside me, but I swallowed it back. There was nothing I could do, nothing I could say, except sit there, humiliated and alone. I started to think about everything I had done for my family over the years. I thought about how I had always been the one to clean up the messes, to take care of the bills, to keep things running. I had spent so much of my life quietly sacrificing my own happiness for theirs. For what? For this? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the elegant setting, at the glistening plates of food and the laughter that echoed around me. But none of it felt real. None of it felt like something I belonged to. My mind raced, flashes of memories running through my head. The countless times I had been the silent one. The one who paid for everything but was never seen. The one who carried the burden of everyone else's mistakes without a single word of thanks. And yet, here I was, the one who had been pushed aside, dismissed, left to linger in the shadows. But I had had enough. I wasn't just angry. I wasn't just hurt. I was tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of being taken for granted. I had spent too long in silence, too long convincing myself that this was normal. It wasn't. It was betrayal. And tonight, I was done. Then I heard it. My sister, laughing loudly across the room, talking about how generous I was to have taken care of the bill. Her voice was dripping with false sweetness, like she thought I couldn't hear her. She didn't care that I was sitting right there. I could feel the heat rise in my chest, the suffocating weight of her words cutting through me. She didn't just ignore me, she had used me. For years. I sat there, feeling the knot tighten in my stomach. I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor louder than I wanted it to. My heart was racing, my hands clenched into fists. But before I could make my move, I looked at her again, and the anger started to grow. And then, just as quickly, I realized, this wasn't worth it. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her to tell me I was worth something. I walked out. I didn't say a word, didn't look back. As I walked away from that table, the weight of everything finally settled on me. I had been the silent one for too long. I paid for my own humiliation. But as I walked out of that room, I realized something. It was no longer about them. It was about me. The morning after the dinner was a stark contrast to the night before. The sky outside my kitchen window was clear, the sun casting a warm glow over the trees lining the street. It should have been a peaceful Sunday, but instead, it felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I sat in the kitchen, cradling my cup of coffee between my hands, watching the world outside. The serene day seemed so out of place with the storm swirling inside me. The air felt thick with tension, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I tried to focus on the simple pleasure of the coffee, its warmth, its bitterness, but my mind kept replaying the events of last night. The sting of my sister's words. The humiliation of being asked to sit away from the main table. It all hit me like a wave, one moment too sharp to ignore. And then, of course, the staff member's words. Your account cleared the bill for tonight. That last bit twisted the knife deeper. It wasn't just the dinner, it was everything. The years of me giving, of being the quiet one who always showed up and took care of things, only to be pushed aside. I took a deep breath, the anger stirring inside me. Was I wrong for feeling this way? Was I really too sensitive, like my sister had suggested? I wanted to believe it was just a misunderstanding, but something in my gut told me this wasn't just about a dinner. It was about years of being unseen, of always being the one to clean up everyone else's mess. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of my phone vibrating on the table. It was my sister, her name lighting up the screen. I felt my stomach tighten, my heart rate picking up. I had known this call would come. She couldn't let it go. I answered, trying to steady my voice. Stacy, she began, her tone hesitant. I just wanted to clear things up. Last night, it was a misunderstanding. The dinner was supposed to be just for immediate family. You know how it is. I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to lash out. The guilt in her voice was so obvious, yet it didn't feel sincere. She was trying to smooth things over, but the words didn't have the same warmth they once did. She was only trying to justify her actions, not truly acknowledge how much she had hurt me. You know I love you, right? She continued, her voice sweet but strained. You're just too sensitive sometimes. I gripped my cup tightly, feeling the heat of her words. Sensitive? Was I really just overreacting? Or was I finally starting to see the truth? The truth that I had spent my entire life tiptoeing around, trying to please everyone, making excuses for people who didn't deserve it. My sister was doing what she always did, brushing aside my feelings, telling me to just accept things, to let go of my anger. But I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence stretch, the weight of my decision settling in. My sister's words had triggered something inside me, something I couldn't ignore anymore. I finally spoke, my voice quieter than I intended. I'm not too sensitive. I'm just tired of being treated like this. As the conversation ended, I sat in the quiet of my kitchen, the phone still in my hand. My heart was heavy, but there was something else brewing inside me, a sense of clarity. This was it. I had been the silent one for too long. I had sacrificed my happiness, my needs, my voice for everyone else. And where had it gotten me? Pushed to the sidelines in my own family, dismissed as if I didn't matter. I thought about the countless times I'd kept quiet, the times I'd swallowed my frustration for the sake of peace. I thought about all the years of putting everyone else's needs first. And for what? To be invisible? To be the one who always gave but never received? I remembered something an old friend once told me. Sometimes, you have to fight for your place, even if that means walking away. Her words echoed in my mind now, louder than ever. Maybe that's what I needed to do. Maybe it was time to stop pretending, to stop being the doormat. But it wasn't easy. It never was. Later that afternoon, I was sitting in my living room, trying to make sense of it all. The weight of everything, the hurt, the disappointment, the anger, was overwhelming. My phone sat on the table in front of me, and I stared at it for what felt like an eternity. I wasn't going to let them do this to me anymore. I wasn't going to stay silent. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling slightly, and began typing a message to my sister. I'm done being treated like this. But just as I was about to send it, my finger hovered over the send button. I stopped. No, I wouldn't send it. Not yet, but the decision had been made. I wasn't going to let this slide anymore. I wasn't going to stay silent while they continued to take me for granted. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace beginning to grow inside me. I wasn't going to be their doormat anymore. I wasn't going to keep hiding my pain, pretending it didn't matter. As I sat back, the room feeling suddenly lighter, I realized something. This wasn't just about them. This was about me, about finding my voice, about standing up for myself, about no longer accepting the scraps they were throwing my way. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was finally making a choice for myself. And that was the first step toward taking control of my life again. 2 days had passed since the dinner, and the weight of everything still clung to me like a fog I couldn't shake. The morning was quiet, too quiet, and it felt like the whole world had slowed down while I tried to catch up with the mess I was still holding inside. The sun had risen early, and from my little living room window, I could see the trees outside shifting in the soft breeze. The sky was a clear blue, promising a calm day, but there was nothing calm about the turmoil that had settled deep within me. I sat in the silence, my cup of coffee now cold in my hands. The last 2 days had been spent reflecting on everything. My sister's cold dismissal, the staff member's words, "Your account cleared the bill," they all echoed in my mind, relentless and unforgiving. The hurt I'd felt had only deepened, but something else was stirring inside me now, something I hadn't quite recognized until this moment. It was anger, sure, but it was also something else, strength. A quiet strength that had been buried under years of sacrifice and silence. I had spent so much time giving, so much time being the one who picked up the pieces for everyone else. And for what? To be left in the shadows? To be humiliated in my own family's celebration? It was enough. I was done, and I wasn't going to keep letting this continue. The guilt gnawing at me for even thinking of standing up for myself was heavy, but I wasn't the same person I used to be. This time, I wasn't going to let fear hold me back. I stood up from the chair, pacing around my living room. My thoughts felt like they were tumbling over each other, none of them finding their place. What was I supposed to do now? Call my sister? Try to smooth things over? I picked up my phone, but my hands shook as I hovered over the contact name. I could feel the tension in my chest, the weight of years of silence, of trying to make everyone happy, creeping in. I wanted to call her. I wanted to fix things. But as I stood there, staring at the screen, I realized something. Maybe fixing things wasn't what I needed anymore. Maybe it was time to stop being the one who bent over backward for everyone. I turned the phone over in my hands. There was a moment of hesitation, but then I decided. I wasn't going to call her. Not this time. Instead, I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen. It felt like the right thing to do, the way to finally get everything off my chest. For years, I had swallowed my feelings, letting them fester until they were nothing more than a quiet ache in the background of my life. But this time, I was going to speak my truth, even if it scared me. Even if it made them angry. I began to write, my pen flowing across the paper. I've given everything to you all, and I've received nothing in return but hurt and isolation. I deserve more. As I wrote the words, a strange feeling came over me. Fear, yes, but also empowerment. I wasn't asking for permission anymore. I was demanding respect. I took a deep breath and pressed send. The decision had been made. There was no going back now. The wait was agonizing. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours, and my phone sat there, mocking me with its stillness. But then, it buzzed. My sister's name flashed across the screen. My heart skipped a beat as I opened the message. Her response was short. "We'll talk when you've calmed down." Just like that. Just a cold, dismissive message, as though everything I had said meant nothing. As though I was overreacting. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me. This was the response I had feared, the one I knew was coming. But there was something different this time. I wasn't crushed. I wasn't afraid. I was strong. She wasn't taking me seriously, but that was okay. For the first time, I wasn't apologizing for how I felt. I wasn't going to shrink into the background, making myself smaller to fit their needs. This time, I was standing up for myself. I set the phone down and took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside. But it wasn't fear that stirred in me anymore. It was something new. Something I hadn't felt in years: confidence. Later that afternoon, I sat down with Simone, my daughter. She could tell something was wrong the moment she walked in, her eyes scanning my face with concern. I hadn't realized how much I'd been holding in until I saw the worry in her eyes. "Mom, what's going on?" she asked gently, sitting beside me on the couch. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I broke down, the tears flowing freely as I told her everything. How I had been pushed aside, how I had always been the one to give and never receive anything in return. I let it all out. Every word, every hurt, every injustice. Simone listened quietly, her hand on my shoulder, offering the support I had needed for so long. When I was finished, she pulled me into a hug. "You've given everything to everyone else, Mom," she said softly, her voice filled with warmth and understanding. "Maybe it's time to stop pretending that's okay." Her words hit me hard. I had spent so much of my life trying to please everyone else, swallowing my own needs, my own pain. But Simone was right. It wasn't okay. It was never okay. And for the first time, I felt something shift inside me. A quiet but powerful realization. I was worth more than this. That evening, as I sat quietly in my living room, I thought about what Marcus had said. His apology was unexpected, and it had caught me off guard. It made me feel seen, in a way I hadn't felt in years. But despite his apology, I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't keep letting them use me, keep allowing myself to be invisible. As I sat there, reflecting on everything, I felt a mixture of sadness and hope. Hope that I could finally take control of my life, but sadness because I knew things would never be the same with my family. They had all taken me for granted for so long, and I couldn't let that happen again. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. I was ready to choose myself. "I am worthy of respect and love," I whispered to myself, the words feeling both foreign and familiar. And in that moment, I knew it was time to take control. It was a rainy Thursday evening, the kind that felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The rain tapped against the window, soft and relentless, as I sat in my small living room, the quiet feeling almost suffocating. I stared out the window, but my mind wasn't on the peaceful view. My thoughts were everywhere, spinning in every direction. 2 days had passed since I sent the message to my sister. 2 days of restless nights, of rethinking my decisions, of wondering if I had done the right thing. A part of me still questioned if I could go back, if I could try to make peace again. But another part, the stronger part, knew that peace at this cost wasn't worth having. My family had crossed a line, and I could no longer ignore it. I wasn't just a passive observer in my life anymore. I had a voice, and I was ready to use it. But that didn't make it any easier. I was exhausted, mentally, physically, emotionally. The past few years of trying to be everything for everyone had taken its toll on me, and now it was time to deal with the fallout. The idea of confronting my sister face to face made my stomach churn. I had hoped for so long that things would just get better on their own. But no more. I paced back and forth across the room, my phone in my hand, my heart racing. I had spent so many years trying to keep the peace, trying to avoid conflict. But now I knew. Silence wasn't the answer. Silence had been my cage. Now, it was time to speak my truth. I had made the decision. I wasn't going to sit in the shadows any longer. I had to confront my sister. Not over the phone, not through another text message. This time, it was going to be face to face, in person. I needed to look her in the eye and tell her everything I had been holding back. It was time to stop hiding. I took a deep breath and dialed her number. My hand shook slightly as I brought the phone to my ear. The ringing felt like an eternity, and when she picked up, I almost wanted to hang up. But I didn't. I couldn't. "I'm coming to see you," I said, my voice steady despite the anxiety crawling up my spine. There was a pause on the other end. "Why? What's this about?" "I need to talk." "We need to talk," I replied. "In person." The cafe was a neutral spot, quiet and dimly lit, but it felt like the last place I wanted to be. I could already feel the tension building in my chest, but there was no turning back now. My sister was sitting at a corner table when I arrived, her expression unreadable. As I approached, she stood up, and we locked eyes. She looked uncomfortable, her posture stiff. I could see that she was bracing herself for whatever was coming, but it didn't matter. I was done pretending everything was fine. I took a seat across from her and let the silence hang for a moment before I spoke. "You hurt me," I said quietly. "For years, you've hurt me, and I've let it slide. But not anymore." She blinked, almost as if she didn't expect those words to come from me. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, but I wasn't backing down. "I've given everything to this family. I've been the one to take care of everything, to make things work, and you've always treated me like I'm invisible." The words flowed out, thick with emotion. "But that's over now." Her response wasn't what I expected. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even an acknowledgement of my pain. No, it was cold, dismissive, like I was overreacting. She waved her hand, as if brushing me off. "Stacy, you're making a big deal out of nothing," she said. "You always do this. You're too sensitive. You should have just let it go." The words cut through me, sharp and cruel. A part of me wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much I had suffered, how much I had sacrificed. But instead, I sat there, feeling the weight of her dismissal settle in. I felt small for a moment, but not for long. This wasn't about her. This was about me. "You still don't get it," I said, my voice growing firmer. "I've spent my life making excuses for you, for all of you. I've taken care of things, always putting myself last. But I'm done." I could see the confusion in her eyes, the way she tried to rationalize her behavior. She didn't understand why I was standing up for myself. Maybe she never would, but it didn't matter anymore. The argument escalated, my sister growing defensive, accusing me of being selfish for finally standing up for myself. She couldn't see past her own pride, couldn't understand the depth of my pain. "You're being selfish," she snapped, her voice rising. "You always make everything about you. It's just a dinner, Stacy. Get over it." I stood up, my hands trembling with anger. "I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not just to make you all comfortable. If that means being alone, then so be it. I will not let anyone treat me this way anymore." I turned and walked out of the cafe, my heart still pounding in my chest. But as I stepped into the cool night air, something shifted within me. I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't the person who had spent years hiding in the background, sacrificing myself for the sake of family. I was taking control of my life now. It had been a week since I confronted my sister, and the weight of the situation still hung heavy on my chest. The rain had stopped earlier in the day, but the grayness in the sky seemed to mirror how I felt inside. It was late afternoon, the light dimming as the day came to an end, and I sat alone in my small living room. The stillness of the house was unsettling. I had made the choice, and now, in the silence, I was trying to find peace with it. But peace wasn't coming easy. The tension with my sister was raw, and the act of cutting ties still felt like a wound that hadn't quite healed. I knew what I'd done was necessary, but part of me couldn't shake the emptiness that came with it. Was I right to sever those bonds, or had I overreacted? I thought about the years I had spent sacrificing for everyone else, always giving, always putting others' needs ahead of my own. Now, for the first time, I had taken a stand. But even that felt like a contradiction. I wasn't used to thinking of myself first. I sat back in my chair, my fingers lightly tapping the armrest. The discomfort of being alone with my thoughts was all too familiar. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, but I ignored it at first, too consumed by my own internal battle. After a few moments, I picked it up and saw a text from Simone. "You okay, Mom?" A sigh escaped me. I typed back, trying to be just a lot on my mind. Simone was always my rock. Even when I felt like everything around me was crumbling, she was the one person who saw me, truly saw me, for who I was. The realization that I wasn't alone in this moment made me feel both grateful and guilty. I had always been the strong one for her, the one who never let anything slip, but now, I needed to lean on her. The next thing I knew, my phone was ringing. The familiar name flashed across the screen. It was Clarissa, an old coworker from a job I had years ago. She had always admired my resilience, but we hadn't talked much since I left the company. I hesitated, but then answered. "Stacy, how've you been?" Her voice was upbeat, a refreshing contrast to the heaviness I had been feeling. "I'm getting by," I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. "What's up?" "I've been thinking about you a lot lately," Clarissa said. "Listen, I'm going to this conference next month. It's about personal empowerment, and I think you'd be perfect for it. It's all about owning your story, your choices. You should come with me." I was taken aback by the invitation. "A conference? I don't know." "Think about it," she urged. "This is a chance to start fresh, to put yourself first for once. You've got nothing to lose." Her words struck a chord with me. For so long, I had lived for everyone else, and now someone was offering me a chance to live for me. But the fear crept in, that nagging voice that told me I wasn't ready for something like this. Could I really take a step into something so unfamiliar? I spent the rest of the evening contemplating her offer, torn between the comfort of my routine and the call to something more. The idea of leaving behind my familiar world, my family drama, was both thrilling and terrifying. But as I sat there in the quiet of my living room, something inside me shifted. I was tired of being the person who always put herself last. I needed this. I needed to take the leap. I picked up my phone again, dialing Simone's number. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mom." "Simone, I've been thinking," I started, my voice steady but unsure. "Clarissa invited me to this conference. About personal empowerment. It sounds like something I need." Simone was silent for a moment before she responded, her voice soft but firm. "Mom, you've given everything to everyone else. Maybe it's time to do something for yourself." Her words were a balm, soothing a part of me I hadn't realized had been aching for so long. I hadn't been living for me. I'd been living for everyone else. But now, I had the chance to change that. The night before the conference, I packed my bags, my hands trembling slightly with anticipation. I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I knew one thing. I was doing this for myself. I had reached a turning point in my life, and I wasn't going to let fear stop me. I sat on my bed, staring at the packed suitcase beside me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of calm. This was my time. This was for me. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew this was the first step in reclaiming my power, my voice. I was done playing the role of the silent martyr. Tomorrow, I would walk into that conference as the woman I was meant to be, not as someone's mother, sister, or daughter, but as Stacy. The conference exceeded all my expectations. As soon as I arrived, I was enveloped by a sense of belonging. There were women from all walks of life, each one telling their own story, their own struggles. I saw myself in so many of them. We participated in workshops, shared our experiences, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt truly seen. The keynote speaker's words resonated deep within me. She spoke about reclaiming personal power, about standing up for ourselves and breaking free from the chains of our past. As she spoke, I could feel every word vibrating through me, like a light bulb flicking on in my mind. I wasn't just a mother. I wasn't just a sister. I was a woman with dreams, with rights, and with the power to choose my own path. I was no longer going to define myself through my family's expectations or their judgment. I had the right to live for me, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away. As the day went on, I began to feel a new version of myself taking shape, one that didn't need anyone's approval. It was liberating, exciting, and terrifying all at once. But then, just as I was starting to feel a sense of peace, my phone rang. It was my sister. "Stacy, where have you been? Why haven't you been answering my calls?" Her voice was sharp, accusing. I took a deep breath before answering. "I'm at a conference, doing something for myself for once. I don't have time for this right now." She didn't seem to understand. "You're abandoning the family. You can't just walk away." "I'm not abandoning anyone," I said, my voice steady. "I'm choosing myself for once. Maybe it's time you did the same." I hung up the phone, and for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. For years, I had been the one to hold the family together, sacrificing everything for them. But not anymore. It had been a few days since I returned from the conference, and I was still reeling from the emotions it stirred. Sitting in my living room that evening, the sun had just dipped below the horizon, and the last light of day filtered through the curtains. The quiet was almost oppressive. A storm had been brewing outside all day, and now it seemed to echo in the turmoil that swirled inside me. I'd taken a stand, stepped into a new chapter of my life, and for a brief moment, I felt the power of it. But as the days passed, the weight of family obligations began to creep back in. The guilt, the need to please, the endless sacrifices I'd made for everyone else, it wasn't so easy to let go of. It felt like I was standing between two worlds. One where I was finally living for myself, and another where my family still expected me to be the person they had always known. I sat there, staring out the window, wrestling with these feelings. What have I done? Am I really doing the right thing? I thought. The question lingered in the air like the storm clouds outside. As the evening wore on, the quiet in the room became almost suffocating. I was torn. Part of me felt relieved by the distance I'd put between myself and the dysfunction of my family. But another part of me felt isolated, cut off from the very people who were supposed to love me. But I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. I had spent my whole life accommodating others, my sister, my parents, my children. I'd never been allowed to exist for myself, and now I was finally being asked to step up and claim what was rightfully mine: my peace, my freedom, my worth. The phone rang, breaking my thoughts. I stared at the screen. It was my sister. I took a deep breath and answered. "Hello? Stacy," she said, her voice laced with frustration. "Why haven't you been answering my calls? I've been trying to reach you." I didn't have to ask. I could hear the anger in her tone, the familiar manipulation. "I've been busy," I replied, my voice calm but firm. "I'm doing things for myself now." "Oh, so you're just going to shut us out like that? After everything I've done for you? You think you can just walk away from the family?" Her words stung, but they didn't have the power they once did. "I'm not walking away," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I'm choosing myself for once. I'm not your emotional punching bag anymore." The silence on the other end was thick. I could hear her breathing, but no words came. After what felt like an eternity, she muttered, "You're being selfish, Stacy." "I've been selfish for you and everyone else for too long," I shot back, my anger building. "It's time to take control of my life. For real, this time." The call ended abruptly. I sat there, letting the silence settle. My heart was racing, my hands trembling, but there was something else inside me, something powerful. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had just defended myself. And that felt good. The weight of guilt crept in shortly after. Was I too harsh? Did I overreact? These questions swirled in my mind like a storm, relentless and nagging. I couldn't shake the doubt. I knew I'd made the right choice, but the years of conditioning, of putting everyone's needs before my own, had left deep scars. I walked over to the small desk where Simone's old photos still sat. I remembered the conversation we had before I left for the conference. She'd told me, "Mom, you've given so much. It's your turn now. Take what's yours." Those words echoed in my mind, and they gave me the strength to silence the guilt. I had spent my life being the one who held everyone up, but now it was time to stand on my own 2 feet. Simone was right. It was time for me. I walked into my closet and pulled out an old jacket. It was one I'd worn to my first job interview, a long-forgotten piece of clothing that symbolized a time when I was full of dreams, full of hope. I stared at the jacket in my hands, remembering the woman I had been back then, the woman I had buried beneath layers of responsibility and sacrifice. I stood in front of the mirror, slipping the jacket on. It was a little tight, but as I looked at myself, something clicked. This was me, the woman I had always been, the woman I was starting to reclaim. I whispered to myself, I will no longer dim my light for anyone. Not for my family, not for anyone. It was a vow, a promise to myself. But just as I was beginning to feel stronger, the phone rang again. This time it was from my cousin. "Hey, Stacy, I just wanted to check in," she said. Her voice was casual, but I knew better. She was fishing. "How's everything? Heard from your sister?" I didn't say anything at first. She already knew. The family gossip was well underway. I could hear the judgment in her tone, and I knew that the whispers were already starting. I had chosen to stand up for myself, and it was causing ripples. "They're talking about me, aren't they?" I finally asked, my voice steady but sharp. "Oh, no, no," she stammered, "I'm just concerned. You know how your sister is. She's just upset. We're all worried about you, that's all." I didn't need to hear any more. I had spent my entire life being pulled into this cycle of guilt and manipulation. I wasn't going to be a part of it anymore. "I've made my choice," I said firmly. "Let them talk. I've been silent for too long." I hung up the phone, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over me. The storm inside me had calmed, but I knew that the hardest part was still ahead. My family wasn't going to let me go so easily, and I was going to have to stand my ground even more fiercely. It had been a few weeks since I walked away from that dinner, and my life had taken on a new rhythm. I was starting to feel at peace, like the dust had finally settled. The quiet in my home, my little sanctuary, felt like a victory. But I could still feel the pressure mounting. My family wasn't letting me go easily. Every day, I felt the weight of their expectations pulling at me. I could hear them in the back of my mind, still demanding that I return to the role they had always cast me in. But this time, I wasn't listening. Simone had been my rock through all of this. Just the other day, she called me. Her voice was steady but filled with urgency. "Mom, it's your time. Don't let them break you. You've come this far. Don't turn back now." Her words hit me hard, like a jolt of electricity. She was right. I had come this far, and I wasn't about to give it all up now. The phone call ended, and I felt a rush of determination surge through me. But the storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. I wasn't expecting what came next. The letter arrived early that afternoon. It was from my sister. A final attempt to pull me back in, to make me feel guilty for choosing my own life. I stared at the envelope for a long time, not sure whether to laugh or cry. It was the same tired manipulation, the same old guilt trip. "You've abandoned us," the letter said. "Family is everything, and you've thrown it all away." I could feel the frustration bubbling up inside of me. I wasn't the one who had thrown anything away. I wasn't the one who had treated people like they were invisible, who had assumed they could do whatever they wanted without consequences. I was done. I didn't even open the letter all the way. I just crumpled it in my hands and tossed it into the trash. It was a symbolic act, the final nail in the coffin. I was done with this. Done with the guilt, done with the manipulation. I wasn't going back, not this time. Then the phone call came. "Marcus." I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but I wasn't prepared for how hard it would be. "Stacy, come on," he said, his voice filled with that familiar pleading. "Just come to the dinner. It's for the family. You owe it to them. To us." I took a breath. He sounded so much like he had all those years ago, when I was the one who always showed up, the one who always did the work, the one who always put herself last. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I wasn't going to be guilted into submission. "I'm not going to come back just because you want me to, Marcus," I said, my voice calm but firm. This isn't about me owing anyone anything. This is about me taking control of my life for once. Stacy, he said, his voice softer, but still trying to persuade me. It's just a dinner. We can talk, work things out. No, I said, my voice steady. I'll come, but I won't be manipulated anymore. Not by you, not by anyone. The call ended, and I knew the next step was coming. I was going to that dinner, but it wasn't going to be like before. I was going to stand my ground. Finally, when I walked into that house, I could feel the tension in the air. The familiar coldness from my sister, the silent judgment from everyone else. It didn't take long for her to speak. You know, Stacy, she said, her tone dripping with disdain, I'm glad you finally showed up. But I can't believe you've been gone for so long. You're acting like you don't care about us. The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. But I wasn't going to let her have that power anymore. Not today. I'm not the problem here, I said, my voice rising as I stood my ground. You've all treated me like I don't matter for years, and I'm done pretending like I don't see it. I'm not asking for your approval anymore. I'm standing up for myself. The room went quiet. I could feel their eyes on me, wide with shock. For the first time, I wasn't playing their game. I wasn't the invisible one anymore. My sister tried to brush it off. Oh, here we go again with the drama. You're too sensitive, Stacy. No, I said, my voice unwavering. I'm not sensitive. I'm done being your emotional punching bag. This is who I am now. If you can't accept that, then that's on you. For a moment, it felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. This wasn't just a dinner. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment I stopped letting them define me. Just when I thought I couldn't be surprised anymore, Marcus stepped in. To my shock, he didn't side with my sister. Instead, he spoke up. Maybe Stacy's right, he said, looking at the rest of the family. We've all been too hard on her. She's been carrying us for years, and now she's standing up for herself. I think we need to respect that. His words stunned me. For the first time in years, I felt seen. It wasn't everything, but it was something. I wasn't alone in this anymore. Marcus had finally seen the truth. But the battle wasn't over. I knew that. I couldn't let this small victory stop me from moving forward. I excused myself from the table and left the dinner early, my heart racing but full of strength. This time, I was in control. This time, I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. When I got home, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister. Marcus is just trying to protect you, Stacy. But your actions are tearing the family apart. Don't you see that? The words burned through me. The manipulation, the guilt. But I wasn't going to fall for it anymore. I took a deep breath, my hands steady as I typed my response. I'm done trying to fix what's broken. I've done enough. I am moving forward, with or without you. I hit send and sat back. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. But something inside me whispered, this is only the beginning. The days since the dinner had settled into a quiet rhythm. I was at peace, or at least, I was trying to be. The weight of my decisions still lingered in the back of my mind. I had walked away from the family, but I could feel the storm building on the horizon. This wasn't just about a dinner or a conversation anymore. This was about my life, my future, and the choices I had made. That evening, I sat by my window, staring out into the night. The moonlight cast shadows across the room, and I felt the stillness surrounding me. But beneath that calm was an undeniable tension. It was as though I could feel the next step approaching, and this time, I knew it would change everything. I'd been empowered by the decision to stand my ground, but the uncertainty of what was coming next left me unsettled. I couldn't help but think of the cost. Would I lose everything? The answer to that question, I realized, was already in my heart. I was ready. The time had come to claim my power fully. The phone rang late in the evening. It was Marcus. His voice, though still familiar, was heavy with something I couldn't quite place. Stacy, he began, I know things have been tense, but I'm asking you to reconsider. The family wants to make things right. Just give us one more chance. The words hit me like a slap in the face, but I kept my voice calm. You think I'm still that person, don't you? I replied, my words firm but quiet. You think I'm the same woman you could manipulate into coming back, into doing what you want. But I'm not. I've made my choice. It's not about them. It's about me. There was silence on the other end of the line. I let it stretch out, giving Marcus a moment to process what I had said. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer, but it held no power over me anymore. I just thought. No, I interrupted. I'm done with this. You need to understand that. The conversation ended with a finality I hadn't expected. It surprised both of us, but I didn't feel guilty. For once, I had put myself first. The next day, I was at work, trying to keep my head in the game when a conversation caught me off guard. You know, Stacy, my coworker, Claire, said casually, I heard about all the drama with your family. I hope you're doing okay. The words were meant to be kind, but they stung. I hadn't realized just how much my family issues had spilled over into other parts of my life. The embarrassment washed over me, but there was no time for weakness. I'd been handling my own life, my own choices, for weeks now. I'm handling it, I replied, giving her a tight smile. But thanks for your concern. I felt the frustration creeping back in, but I also felt a strange sense of pride. For the first time in a long while, I was no longer the person who had to hide her pain. I had set boundaries, at work, with my family, and in every other area of my life. It wasn't just about standing firm anymore, it was about pushing back against everything that had held me back for so long. I couldn't let the family's drama taint my career too. Then came the invitation. A family dinner, this time from my mother. I knew what this was. Another attempt to reel me in, to make me feel like I owed them one last shot at peace. But I wasn't buying it. Marcus called, pleading once more. Stacy, just come to the dinner. We're all waiting for you. Please, we want to make things right. I stood still for a moment, feeling the weight of the situation. Part of me wanted to refuse, to stay in my new world of peace. But I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. If this was the last shot, then it would be on my terms. I'll come, I said, my voice steady. But understand this. I'm not coming back to apologize for something that was never my fault. I'm coming to end this cycle, once and for all. I hung up, knowing this dinner would be the final test. It would either break me or set me free. When I walked into that room, the atmosphere was thick with tension. My sister didn't waste time. She immediately attacked. You think you can just walk away from all of us? She said, her voice dripping with accusation. You're breaking the family apart. Don't you care about us? For a moment, the familiar guilt crept in, but I pushed it away. This was my moment. I wasn't going to play their game anymore. No, I said, my voice cutting through her words. I'm not the problem here. You've treated me like I don't matter for years, and I'm done pretending I don't see it. I'm done being your scapegoat. The room fell silent. For the first time, I spoke my truth out loud. No more hiding, no more silence. This was who I was now. My mother tried to intervene, offering empty words of reconciliation, but I was done. I've been carrying your burdens for years, I said, standing up from the table. I'm done. You all want me to apologize for things that were never my fault? No, this ends now. And then, something I didn't expect, Marcus stepped in. She's right, he said, his voice quieter than usual, but firm. We've treated her unfairly. Stacy deserves more respect than this. I was stunned. For years, I had been carrying this burden alone, and now, for the first time, someone was acknowledging my pain. It didn't fix everything, but it gave me hope. Maybe I wasn't completely alone in this fight. But I couldn't stay. I had done enough. I turned, walked out of that dinner, and felt a weight lift off my chest. I wasn't running from them. I was walking away from a life I didn't belong in anymore. The text came just as I got into my car. It was from my sister. You're tearing this family apart, it read. Marcus is just trying to protect you, and you're going to ruin everything. The anger I had been holding back finally broke through. I read the text again, my heart pounding with frustration. This was it, the final straw. I took a deep breath, letting the rage settle, and then I typed my response. I'm done trying to fix what's broken. I've done enough. I am moving forward, with or without you. With that, I hit send. For the first time in years, I felt free. As I drove away, I couldn't help but reflect on the years I'd spent trying to please them, trying to fix things that weren't mine to fix. Now, I was free. I had finally claimed my power. The family might have thought they could break me, but what they didn't realize was that their rejection was the very thing that freed me. The morning sun filtered through the window, casting a soft glow over the room. It had been a few weeks since that final dinner with my family, the one that had marked the end of years of emotional manipulation. I sipped my coffee slowly, the warmth grounding me in this new life I was building. The past few months had been a whirlwind, but now, there was a sense of clarity I hadn't felt before. I wasn't fully at peace yet, that would take time. But I felt something stirring inside me, a quiet strength that had been absent for so long. The tension from before had settled, leaving behind a calm I wasn't used to. The next step felt close, but I wasn't sure what it would be. Still, for the first time in a long while, I was no longer afraid of the unknown. I had faced the storm, and now, I was moving beyond it. As I sat there reflecting, the sound of my phone ringing broke my thoughts. It was a number I hadn't expected to hear from, my mother. My heart skipped a beat, but I forced myself to answer. "Stacy," she began, her voice trembling, "I've been thinking about everything. I know I haven't been the mother you needed. I didn't support you when I should have. I'm sorry for that. I hope, maybe we can find a way forward, together." I sat still for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. It felt like a lifetime since I had last heard such softness from her. But I couldn't ignore the years of hurt, the years of silence that had led to this moment. Was this truly an apology, or was it just another attempt to pull me back into the same cycle? I read the letter a few times, each word feeling heavier than the last. Her apology was a start, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. I set the letter down on the table and stared at it. It wasn't that I didn't want closure. It was that I couldn't let myself believe her just yet. Not until I was sure that the past wouldn't repeat itself. The next day, as I was going through my routine at work, Marcus called me again. This time, he was in town and wanted to meet. My stomach twisted at the thought, but I knew I had to face him. He was my brother, and no matter how much he had hurt me, we shared a history. "I just want to talk, Stacy," he said when I answered. "I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't there for you, and I need to make it right. Please, let's meet." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I wasn't sure if I could trust him again, but I had to try. "Fine," I said, my voice firm. "We'll meet, but on my terms. I'm not doing this to go back to the way things were. This is for me." We agreed to meet at a cafe the next morning. The anticipation was heavy in the air, but I knew this conversation had to happen. When I arrived at the cafe, Marcus was already there. He sat nervously, his hands wrapped around his coffee cup. I took a seat across from him, waiting. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us felt thick with all the words we hadn't said. Finally, he looked at me, his voice quiet. "Stacy, I know I messed up. I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I didn't know how to fix things. I'm sorry for not being there for you, for letting you down." I looked at him, my heart a tangled mess of anger, sadness, and something else, understanding. I had been waiting for this moment, expecting some grand apology to fix everything. But the truth was, I wasn't the same person anymore. The apology didn't erase the years of silence, the years of being overlooked and ignored. "You think an apology can erase years of pain?" I said, my voice steady but full of raw emotion. "It doesn't work like that. I'm not the same person I was, and I'm not going to let you off the hook just because you want me to. I've been carrying this weight for so long, and I'm done." I sat back, feeling a sense of power I hadn't realized was possible. I wasn't asking for his forgiveness. I was asking for my own healing. I was done with the cycle. I left the cafe feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. The conversation with Marcus had reopened wounds I thought were healing, but it also reaffirmed my strength. I was done being defined by the past. As I returned home, I reflected on everything. The betrayal, the silence, the years of being the family's emotional punching bag. It all made sense now. It wasn't that I had been broken. I had been waiting for them to see me for who I was. But I had always been whole. I picked up my phone and texted my mother. "I need space. I can't pretend anymore." The message wasn't filled with anger or bitterness. It was simply the truth. I couldn't keep living in a way that wasn't true to me. The phone rang again, and I knew before I even answered that it was her. My mother's voice on the other end was filled with desperation. "Stacy, please. This is our last chance. We can work this out, just meet me. Please, I need you to understand. I want to fix this." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. But I was tired. Tired of carrying the weight of this family's expectations. Tired of being emotionally manipulated. "I've made my choice," I said, my voice calm but resolute. "You won't manipulate me anymore. I'm done." I ended the call, feeling a sense of relief flood over me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of their rejection. I sat there in the quiet of my apartment, a sense of finality washing over me. The family I had tried so hard to please, to fix, to make whole, they weren't my responsibility anymore. "I don't need them to approve of me," I whispered to myself. "I only need to approve of myself. This is my life, and I'm finally living it on my terms." I stood up, feeling a wave of freedom rush over me. I had no idea what the future held, but I was finally ready to embrace it,